The defeat of Arab states at the hand of Israel created bitterness and resentment and anti-Western feelings in them. As the peace treaty was not signed between Arabs and Israel with the mediation of US and UN, only a ceasefire had been arranged, the Arabs became suspicious of the motives of the West. Along with millions of other Arabs, the Egyptians felt bitter about their defeat at the hand of the Israelis in 1949. Egypt was the largest Arab state and was strategically important. It was the bridge between Africa and Asia. The Suez Canal, which passed through its territory, was the main trading link between Europe and the East. It was a vital link for Britain, which had many military bases in the East and which depended on supplies of oil from the Persian Gulf. The Suez Canal had been opened in 1869 by British and French businessmen. The company they set up ran the canal until July 1956, when President Nasser of Egypt proclaimed that the company sucked our blood and stole our rights. Ghernan Nasser, the new ruler of Egypt, had come to power in 1954 by overthrowing the corrupt pro-British regime of King Farouk in 1952. Jamal Abdel Nasser was determined to make Egypt a great Arab country and lead the fight to expel the Jews from Palestine to create an Arab homeland. He had persuaded the British to withdraw their troops from the Suez Canal zone. Britain and USA wanted to be on good terms with Nasser. They wanted Arab support in the Middle East against the Russian influence. It was the period of Cold War, and both USA and USSR were looking for winning friends abroad and extend their influence. The Western powers wanted an alliance with Egypt as it was the strongest and most developed Arab nation. Also, the Suez Canal passed through its territory. Instead, Nasser started building up links with the USSR and asked them to help train his army and air force. He bought 80 MiG fighter aircraft and 45 Ilyushin bombers to create a powerful air force to attack the Israel. He also blew up the port of Eilat at the Gulf of Aqaba. The US saw this move as an attempt of Egypt to drift towards USSR and, as a reaction, stopped a US loan to help build the Aswan Dam. This was President Nasser's project to provide water and hydroelectricity for the Egyptian people. Thus, Nasser reacted by nationalizing the Suez Canal, intending to use the income from it to finance the dam. He almost did everything to offend the Western powers. He organized guerrilla warfare, guerrilla fighters known as Fedayeen, to carry out sabotage and murder inside Israel. Anthony A. Eden, the British Conservative Prime Minister, believed that Nasser was on the way to forming a united Arab under Egyptian control and communist influence which could cut off Europe's oil supplies. It was decided by the West that Nasser must not be appeased in any way. Everybody in Britain ignored the fact that Nasser had offered compensation to the shareholders, Britain and France, and had assured that the ships of all nations except Israel would be able to use the canal. A secret meeting was held at Sèvres, near Paris, took place in October 1956 between Britain, France, and Israel, and a plan was hatched. It was decided that Israel would invade Egypt across the Sinai Peninsula, whereupon British and French troops would occupy the canal zone on the pretext that they were protecting it from the damage in the fighting. Anglo-French control of the canal would be restored, and the defeat, it was hoped, would topple Nasser from power. The Israelis invaded Egyptian territory on 29 October 1956, and within 7 days they had gained control of the Sinai. On 5 November 1956, France and Britain seized the mouth of the Suez Canal and bombed Port Said and Egyptian airfields. The attacks caused an outcry from the rest of the world, and the Americans, who were afraid of upsetting all the Arabs and forcing them into closer ties with the USSR, refused to support Britain. On the other hand, Russians threatened military action against Britain. With the pressure of world opinion against them, Britain, France, and Israel agreed to withdraw, while the United Nations troops moved in to police the frontier between Egypt and Israel. This war was a complete humiliation for Britain and France, who achieved none of their aims, and it was a triumph of President Nasser, as the war failed to overthrow Nasser and his prestige as the leader of Arab nationalism was soared. He became the hero of Arab nations. In the aftermath of the war, the value of the pound began to drop as the US said that they would not help support the British economy. The United Nations did not like what Britain had done. On January 9, 1957, the Prime Minister of Britain, Eden, resigned. Britain was clearly no longer a world power. The power had shifted to USA and USSR as the Cold War developed. On the other hand, the Arabs reduced oil supplies to Western Europe, where petrol rationing was introduced for a time, and Russian aid replaced that from the USA. The war was also a success for Israel in one way. Although Israel had been compelled to hand back all territory captured from Egypt, she had inflicted heavy losses on the Egyptians, damaging human resources and infrastructure, which would take years to recover. For the time being, the Fedayeen raids ceased to exist, and Israel had a breathing space during which she worked on to consolidate her power. Certain developments took place in Arab countries after the war. The first Arab summit held in January 1964 at Cairo, led by President Nasser of Egypt. In the summit meeting, concern about Israel's plan to divert the River Jordan was discussed. The summit agreed to stop this and created a unified Arab command under Egyptian control in case of war with Israel. In September 1964, at the Second Arab Summit, the Arabs made a decision to alter the course of the River Jordan and to reorganize Arab armies. At this, Israel complained to the United Nations about the development taking place in the Arab world. Already the Arab League had been formed in 1945, which contained 6 members, including Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Syria. This league wanted to bring stability among the Arab people and in the region. By 1950, they planned to consolidate their military strength. At Cairo Summit in 1964, the Arab League had to create a new organization for the stateless Palestinians, known as the Palestinian Liberation Organization (PLO), formed in June 1964. This PLO was to become later on one of the most famous terrorist organizations for the Western world, and for the Arab world, they were considered as the freedom fighters, aimed to liberate Palestine from the occupation of the Jews. We'll discuss the events of the 1967 war in the next video. Stay tuned.